You know, I've written a book called The Grand Weaver. He'll pull the threads together in your life. And when you stand before him someday, every thread will make sense. And you will find the hope that needeth not be ashamed, because you're covered by the grace of one who walked to Calvary for you and rose again from the dead for you to offer you hope and eternal life. Tell me what atheism has to offer as hope. It's in you. And if you look inside, that's pretty meager. No law, no hope, no meaning. And ultimately, you deny God. And if you find out that he actually exists, there is no recovery at that point. You know, Pascal said this, and I'll close with this. Should a man be in error in supposing the Christian religion to be true, he could not be a loser by mistake. But how irreparable is his loss, and how inexpressible his danger, who should err in supposing it to be false. Should a man be in error in supposing the Christian religion to be true, he could not be a loser by mistake, but how irreparable is his loss, and how inexpressible his danger, who should err in supposing it to be false. This wager of Pascal has been the most misunderstood thing that I have ever heard interpreted. Pascal is not here betting and thinking he's got the better bet. Pascal is saying this: if all you have to offer in life outside of God is some kind of fulfillment and personal existential satisfaction, I get that in God. But what I get in God is more than that. So if your test is some kind of a temporary fulfillment of your 70 years and 10, I have found it in my spiritual belief. But I have found more than that. I found the truth, and I found an eternal destiny. So your test I have already met. My test you have not met. That's what he's saying. You know, I've written a series of books called The Great Conversations, imaginary conversation between Jesus and somebody. The first one was The Lotus and the Cross, Jesus talks to Buddha. Second one was Sense and Sensuality, Jesus talks to Oscar Wilde. The third one was The Lamb and the Fuhrer, Jesus talks to Hitler. Fourth is New Birth or Rebirth, Jesus talks to Krishna. Now what I do is take the words of these people in their settings and what they said on certain issues and what Jesus said in response in very similar situations, bring in 2 or 3 other foil personalities and imagine a conversation there of what would go on. The one that I did on Oscar Wilde, Sense and Sensuality, the third personage talking there is Pascal. The reason I picked Pascal is because both Pascal and Oscar Wilde had their funeral services in the same church in Paris. Pascal's coat still hangs there, and in his coat is sewn in his testimony, which he never wanted to lose. Oscar Wilde, at his funeral, didn't have one bar of music played. This was the hedonist. Not far from that church, he lay dying in his 40s after having lived a totally sensuous life, something like Michel Foucault of recent vintage, that there were no absolutes but your own absolutes. There was no boundary in life, enjoy it all. When Oscar Wilde was dying, he looked at his friend Robbie Ross and he said to him, "Get me a priest." Robbie Ross was stunned. And Wilde, in his poem, The Ballad of Reading Gaol, said, "Because there's only one big enough now to forgive this heart of mine, and that is the Christ of Calvary." Jean-Paul Sartre lived as an atheist. On his deathbed, he said to his mistress, "It is unlivable." Anthony Flew, when I was in my graduate school days, the biggest known atheist of that time. I had to read everything Flew had written. He saved me an awful lot of time if he told me what he was going to say in years to come. Now he says he no longer can sustain his atheism logically. Ladies and gentlemen, like Douglas Copeland, you better admit the secret. You need God. You need God.